Hello everyone, welcome to our Meetings Assistance for Jehovah's Witnesses channel. I hope all of you are doing well. In this video, we are going to analyze and answer the questions from this week's Watchtower study, which corresponds to the week of July 7th to 13th, and is titled, Young Ones, Imitate Mark and Timothy. Without further ado, let's begin. Let's look at questions 1 and 2. What could have prevented Mark and Timothy from doing more in their service to Jehovah? Fear of the unknown and lack of experience were factors that could have prevented Mark and Timothy from doing more in their service to Jehovah. Both faced difficult situations in which they had to step out of their comfort zone, such as leaving their family home or doubting whether they were prepared to take on greater responsibilities in their ministry. However, they decided not to let these concerns stop them. Additional comments. Mark decided to step out of his comfort zone and join the ministry, showing his willingness to serve Jehovah, even though this meant leaving his home. As Psalm 110:3 says, "Your people will offer themselves willingly," reflecting how those who serve with faith are blessed. Timothy, despite his youth and inexperience, accepted the challenge to serve with Paul. The exhortation in 1 Timothy 4:12, "Let no one look down on you because you are young," highlights that the value of service to Jehovah does not depend on age but on a willing heart. Now let's look at question 3, part A. How do we know that Mark and Timothy were very valuable to Paul? 2 Timothy 4:6-9-11, also see the images. We know that Mark and Timothy were very valuable to Paul because, at the end of his life, he specifically asked for them to be with him. In 2 Timothy 4:6-9-11, Paul expresses his desire for both of them to accompany him, demonstrating the great trust and esteem he had for them in his final moments. Additional comments. Paul shows how much he valued Mark and Timothy by asking for their presence at such a critical time. The request in 2 Timothy 4:11, "Take Mark and bring him with you, for he is useful to me for ministry," reveals the high regard in which he held them as trusted co-workers. Paul's request to have Mark and Timothy by his side in his final moments reflects the close bond they had, built over years of faithful service. This desire for companionship shows that they were not only useful for ministry but also loyal and valuable companions during difficult times. Now let's move on to question 3, part B. What questions will we analyze in this article? In this article, we will analyze the qualities that made Mark and Timothy valuable to Paul, how young brothers can follow their example, and what advice from Paul can help them be more effective in their service. Additional comments. The article focuses on identifying the qualities that made Mark and Timothy valuable, which can inspire young brothers to adopt those characteristics. By analyzing their examples, we can see how commitment, loyalty, and a willingness to learn were essential for their success. Paul's advice to young people, such as in 1 Timothy 4:12, "Let no one look down on you because you are young," can serve as practical guidance for young people to strengthen themselves in the ministry. This reminds them that their value in service does not depend on age but on their dedication and example. Let's move on to the first subtitle, Be Like Mark, Willing to Serve Others. Now let's look at questions 4 and 5. How did Mark demonstrate that he was willing to serve others? Mark demonstrated his willingness to serve others by not letting the initial rejection from Paul discourage him. Although Paul did not want to take him on his second missionary trip, Mark did not abandon his desire to serve Jehovah. Instead, he joined his cousin Barnabas and continued his missionary work. Later, when Paul was under arrest in Rome, Mark supported him and, according to Colossians 4:10-11, became a great source of comfort to him. Additional comments. Mark's perseverance, even after being initially rejected, shows his dedication to serving, despite difficulties. This illustrates the principle that when facing obstacles, we must persist and seek new opportunities to serve, as Mark did by joining Barnabas and continuing to preach. Paul's description of Mark as a great source of comfort in Colossians 4:10-11 reflects the positive impact Mark had on others. He not only persevered in the ministry but his support to Paul was so valuable that he became a source of encouragement, showing how constant service can be a blessing to others. Now let's look at question 6. How did spending time with mature Christians help Mark? Spending time with mature Christians, such as Paul and Peter, greatly helped Mark grow spiritually. After being with Paul in Rome, he joined the Apostle Peter in Babylon, where he established such a close relationship that Peter called him, "my son." During their time together, it is likely that Peter shared details about the life and ministry of Jesus, which Mark later wrote down in his Gospel. Additional comments. The time Mark spent with mature Christians like Paul and Peter allowed him to learn from their experience and wisdom. His close relationship with Peter, who considered him his son, not only strengthened his faith but also prepared him to convey the message of Jesus in a deeper and more effective way in his gospel. Peter's influence on Mark shows the value of being close to mature Christians. By directly hearing from someone who knew Jesus, Mark was able to gain a richer and more detailed understanding of Christ's ministry, which enabled him to write a gospel that has been of great value to Christians throughout the centuries. Now let's look at question 7. How did a young brother follow Mark's example? Also see the image. A young brother followed Mark's example by being patient and continuing to look for ways to serve Jehovah, even when he did not receive the responsibility he expected in the congregation. Similar to Mark, who surrounded himself with mature Christians, this young brother, Sung-woo, began offering to help older brothers and those who needed transportation to meetings. By doing so, he discovered what it truly means to serve others and found satisfaction in that service. Additional comments. Just like Mark, who stayed busy in his service to Jehovah despite difficulties, Sung-woo learned that service is not always measured by visible or immediate responsibilities. His example reflects the idea that serving others practically, even if it is not always recognized, is a valuable way to contribute to the well-being of the congregation. Sung-woo's lesson shows that constant and humble service is the true essence of Christian ministry. As one of the elders said, helping others, even when it sometimes goes unnoticed, brings deep happiness, which is a principle Mark also understood by serving continually with mature Christians. Let's move on to the second subtitle, Be Like Timothy, showing that you care for others. Now let's look at question 8. Why did Paul want Timothy to accompany him on his journeys? Philippians 2:19-22. Paul chose Timothy to accompany him on his journeys because this young man had a good reputation among the brothers, and Paul knew that he genuinely cared for others. In Philippians 2:19-22, it is highlighted that Timothy had a sincere interest in the welfare of others, which made him a valuable companion for Paul, especially during times when he needed brave brothers to face challenges. Additional comments. Timothy's good reputation, mentioned in Acts 16:1-2, shows that his life and conduct had been a positive testimony to the congregation. This example teaches us that a solid Christian reputation is crucial when seeking to collaborate in ministry, as it reflects the respect and trust of the congregation. The fact that Timothy genuinely cared for people, as mentioned in Philippians 2:20, shows the importance of having a heart dedicated to the welfare of others. This type of attitude, seeking to serve others without selfish motives, is an essential quality for those who wish to support others in their ministry. Now let's look at question 9. How did Timothy demonstrate that he genuinely cared for his brothers? Timothy demonstrated that he genuinely cared for his brothers by putting the needs of others above his own. From his first moments serving with Paul, he showed his willingness to help new disciples, like when Paul left him in Berea to encourage the congregation. Later, Paul trusted him to send him to Thessalonica to strengthen the brothers. Over the years, Timothy developed a deep love for his brothers, even sharing his emotions, like when he wept with those who wept. Additional comments. The fact that Paul trusted Timothy to stay in Berea and then sent him to Thessalonica highlights Timothy's love and trustworthiness. His ability to care for the congregation shows how young ones can serve others with a selfless and consistent focus. Timothy's empathy, reflected in his ability to weep with those who weep, shows a deep level of love and connection with the brothers. This attitude of sharing feelings and supporting others is a clear example of how young brothers can continue to show care and genuine support in their ministry. Now let's look at question 10. How did a brother learn to care more about other people? A brother named Wu Jie learned to care more about others by receiving advice from an elder. As a young man, he struggled to start conversations with older brothers, so he would only briefly greet them. However, following the advice to think about something he liked about them and what might interest them, Wu Jie began to develop better skills for relating to others. Today, as an elder, he feels more capable of understanding others and offering them the necessary support. Additional comments. The advice Wu Jie received to genuinely care about others, such as highlighting their qualities and thinking about what might interest them, reflects the importance of empathy in communication. This approach, based on actively caring about the problems and needs of others, allowed Wu Jie to connect better with the brothers and offer meaningful help. Wu Jie's transformation from feeling uncomfortable to being an elder who better understands others' problems highlights the personal growth that can be achieved when we dedicate ourselves to caring for and understanding others. This learning and maturing process also shows how communication skills can be key to serving others effectively. Now let's look at question 11. How can young ones learn to care more about the brothers in the congregation? Also see the image. Young ones can learn to care more about the brothers in the congregation by talking to everyone, regardless of age, during meetings. They should ask how they are and listen carefully to their answers. Over time, this will allow them to identify how they can help, such as offering assistance with electronic devices or going out in the ministry with those who need it. Taking the initiative to help others is an effective way to be a good example in the congregation. Additional comments. Genuine interest in others begins with the simple action of asking how they are and listening to their responses. This allows young ones to connect more deeply with their brothers and realize their needs, which is an important step toward effective service. Taking the initiative to help with practical tasks, such as assisting brothers with electronic devices or accompanying them in ministry, shows a sincere desire to contribute to the well-being of the congregation. This attitude of practical service can inspire others to do the same and strengthen bonds within the community. Let's move on to the third subtitle, Paul's advice can help you. Let's look at question number 12. What can young ones do to benefit from the advice Paul gave to Timothy? Young ones can benefit from the advice Paul gave to Timothy by reading the letters that Paul wrote to him as if they were addressed to them personally. By doing so, they can identify and apply the principles Paul gave to Timothy to their own lives and ministry. It is important to reflect on these pieces of advice and think about how they can be applied to improve their service to Jehovah and their Christian life. Additional comments. By reading 1 Timothy 1:18, where Paul advises Timothy to fight the good fight, young ones can learn the importance of maintaining a firm and constant focus in their service to Jehovah. This advice helps them stay focused on their ministry and the daily struggle to maintain their Christian integrity. In 2 Timothy 4:5, Paul tells Timothy to do the work of an evangelist, which is a reminder for young ones to not just wait for opportunities, but to take initiative in their ministry. This advice emphasizes the need to be diligent and active in preaching and teaching, which can also be applied to their daily and ministerial lives. Let's look at question number 13. What will help you to have devotion to God? What will help you have devotion to God is training yourself to make it a goal. Devotion to God involves being loyal to Jehovah and wanting to do what pleases Him, which is not natural but needs to be cultivated. Paul advises us to train yourself, to develop the necessary self-discipline. Just as athletes train hard to reach their goal, we too must work to strengthen our friendship with Jehovah. Additional comments. The reference to train yourself in 1 Timothy 4:7b, using a word related to athlete training, highlights the need for effort and personal discipline. Just as athletes prepare consistently for their competition, we must cultivate consistent spiritual habits to strengthen our relationship with Jehovah. The self-discipline Paul mentioned is key to developing devotion to God. Just as athletes train in their disciplines to win victories, we need to train spiritually through prayer, Bible study, and ministry to maintain our loyalty and obedience to Jehovah. Let's look at question number 14. What is our goal when reading the Bible? Explain it with a practical exercise. Our goal when reading the Bible is to strengthen our friendship with Jehovah. A practical exercise would be reading a passage like Mark 10:17-22, where Jesus shows love and patience toward a rich young man. Reflecting on this, we can learn about Jehovah's love and ask ourselves how we can draw closer to Him and help others. Additional comments. When reading passages like Mark 10:17-22, it is important to reflect on how Jesus, as a faithful reflection of Jehovah, John 14:9, showed love and patience even toward those who did not have enough faith. This teaches us to be more understanding and patient with others and strive to draw closer to Jehovah. Meditating on Bible accounts and then applying those lessons to our personal lives help strengthen our relationship with Jehovah. By asking ourselves, what do I need to do to draw closer to Jehovah? We are looking for practical ways to live according to His principles, which is essential for deepening our friendship with Him. Let's look at question number 15. Why is it important for young ones to strive to be a good example? 1 Timothy 4:12-13. It is important for young ones to strive to be a good example because their actions have more impact than their words. Paul told Timothy to show qualities like love, faith, and purity, in addition to being a good teacher. If young ones strive to live what they preach, their example will be much more effective, and their words will carry more weight. Additional comments. As 1 Timothy 4:12 says, be an example to the believers, Paul emphasizes the importance of actions that align with what is taught. Young ones can be a positive example if they live according to Christian principles, demonstrating in their lives what they teach others. In 1 Timothy 3:13, it mentions that those who serve well gain great confidence. The effort to be a good example in daily life strengthens the testimony we give to others, helping our words about preaching and faith have more impact on them. Let's look at question number 16, Part A. In what 5 aspects can young brothers be an example? Young brothers can be an example in 5 aspects mentioned in 1 Timothy 4:12, their speech, their conduct, their love, their faith, and their purity. Setting out to analyze these points in personal study will help them improve in each of these aspects. Additional comments. By being an example in the way they speak, young ones can strengthen their Christian testimony. Words are powerful, and as 1 Timothy 4:12 mentions, your speech should be one of the areas in which they show their best version. This highlights the importance of being mindful of how we express ourselves, especially in the congregation. Additionally, being a good example in the 5 aspects mentioned by Paul not only shows personal growth but also inspires others. By being an example in faith, conduct, love, and purity, young ones show that they are committed to following Christian principles, which strengthens the unity of the congregation. Let's look at question number 16, Part B. What can a young one do to be an example by their way of speaking? To be an example by their way of speaking, a young one can think about what they can say to encourage others. This includes thanking their parents for what they do, giving comments in their own words during meetings, and making positive comments about others' contributions. This effort will be noticed by others and show their progress as a servant of God. Additional comments. By making a conscious effort to speak in an edifying way, as suggested in 1 Timothy 4:15, young ones have the opportunity to influence others positively. Showing appreciation for others' comments and thanking them for what they do creates an atmosphere of support and mutual encouragement in the congregation. A young one who takes care of their speech and makes edifying comments demonstrates humility and gratitude, which can be a powerful testimony of their faith. By focusing on words that build up and encourage, young ones also reflect love and respect for others, which strengthens their ministry and relationships within the congregation. Let's look at question number 17. What things will help a young one reach their spiritual goals? 2 Timothy 2:22. To reach their spiritual goals, a young one must flee from youthful desires that can lead them away from Jehovah, as mentioned in 2 Timothy 2:22. This involves balancing time between non-bad activities like sports or video games, and spiritual activities like helping at the Kingdom Hall or preaching. By doing this, they can surround themselves with friends who encourage them to achieve their spiritual goals. Additional comments. Paul's advice in 2 Timothy 2:22, flee from youthful desires, highlights the importance of rejecting what can distract us from spiritual activities. By doing so, young ones can dedicate more time to strengthening their relationship with Jehovah. By getting involved in activities like helping with the maintenance of the Kingdom Hall or preaching, young ones create a supportive environment that motivates them to stay focused on their spiritual goals, surrounding themselves with friends who share the same priorities. Let's move on to the fourth subtitle, the blessings of serving others. Let's look at question number 18. Why can we say that Mark and Timothy had a happy and fulfilling life? We can say that Mark and Timothy had a happy and fulfilling life because they sacrificed their time and effort to serve others. Mark traveled to various parts of the world and wrote the Gospel of Mark, while Timothy helped Paul in establishing congregations and encouraging the brothers. Thanks to these sacrifices, both lived a life full of purpose and joy, knowing that Jehovah was pleased with their service. Additional comments. Mark and Timothy experienced a life full of satisfaction and emotions because, by sacrificing their own interests to serve Jehovah, they found a deep purpose and joy in their ministry. Acts 20:35 mentions that, there is more happiness in giving than in receiving, highlighting how selfless service brought them true happiness. The sacrifice and dedication of Mark and Timothy not only brought them happiness but also strengthened their relationship with Jehovah. By being instruments for preaching and building up the congregation, both reflected the principle that serving others is one of the most rewarding ways to live a full Christian life. Let's look at question number 19. Why is it important for young men to apply Paul's advice, and what will the result be? It is important for young men to apply Paul's advice because these pieces of advice reflect Jehovah's love and desire for them to have a full and happy life. By cultivating the desire to serve their brothers more, they will be able to enjoy a fulfilling life and, in the future, attain the life that really is life, eternal life with Jehovah. Additional comments. Paul's advice is valuable because it not only shows the love he had for Timothy but also reflects Jehovah's love for young men. By applying these pieces of advice, young men can develop a life of service, which brings them joy and purpose. By following Paul's advice, young ones not only enjoy a happy life now but also secure their eternal future. As 1 Timothy 6:18-19 mentions, serving others and living according to Christian principles leads to the life that truly is life, an eternal life with Jehovah. Now we will answer the review questions titled, "What would you answer?" Question 1. What have you learned from Mark's example? Mark's example teaches me the importance of being perseverant in ministry, even when we face rejections or challenges. Although he was initially rejected by Paul for the second missionary journey, Mark continued serving Jehovah with dedication, and over time, he was recognized for his worth. It also shows how, by surrounding ourselves with mature Christians, we can grow spiritually and be more useful in the ministry. Question 2. What does Timothy's example teach you about how to treat others? Timothy's example teaches me to be a true friend and to genuinely care for others. Timothy showed genuine love and concern for the welfare of the brothers, which made him an excellent co-worker of Paul. It also reminds me that, even though we may be young, we can be a source of comfort and support for others if we act with humility, empathy, and willingness. Question 3. What advice from Paul can help a young man progress in his service to Jehovah? Paul's advice, such as being a good example in the way of speaking, conduct, faith, love, and purity, is fundamental for a young man to progress in his service to Jehovah. In addition, Paul advises Timothy to be diligent, not to be discouraged by challenges, and to focus on serving others with sincerity. By applying these pieces of advice, a young man can develop a strong and fruitful Christian life. Well, these have been the answers from this week's Watchtower study. I hope it is very helpful to you, my dear brothers and sisters. We will see you next week with a new video. I send you a big hug, and may Jehovah bless and protect you always.